Stand by for the Brewery Underground podcast.
In Nashville's harbor wise, craft and brews will meet the skies. Stephen Scott, they lead the way. Brewery Underground, night and day. Raise your glass, let's ignite. In this city, we unite. Raise your glass, let's ignite. In this city, we unite.
We have with us an old familiar face returning to the podcast. It is Eric Latham. He is owner of Johnson City Brewing in Johnson City, Tennessee, and also the president of the Tennessee Craft Brewers Guild. You brought some backup.
Yeah, he was outnumbered last time, so now he's back.
Yeah, we got our secret weapon. We got Anna McKay. She's our newly minted head brewer at Johnson City Brewing.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, welcome. Eric, welcome back. And Anna, congratulations on that new position. That is fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We're very, very happy for you, Anna. We saw recently that you were officially named the head brewer there. And I mean, that has to be a tremendous achievement for you, because I know you started out at the brewery a few years ago and worked your way up, huh?
I did. It was kind of an ideal situation for me where I started about 6 years ago with the company and was kind of able to train into production and then gradually apprentice under Eric into the brewing side of it. So it's been years in the making for this, and it was really special to be able to have the opportunity to step into this role.
Yeah, and Eric, how proud do you have to be of someone that you've seen come up through your brewery over the years and now is the head brewer for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys know this all too well, is that we small breweries, many times the founders, like Kat, my wife, and I, you're the brewers, you're the servers, you're the janitors, you're the tour guides, you do everything. And so it's really a challenge to hand off a position like head brewer, because that's the main one. You're making beer, you're selling beer, that's what you do, and it's a small business, and everybody wears a lot of hats. So it would have had to have been someone very special to us. And Anna's been with our company for over 6 years. She not only knows the ins and outs of our brewery, which is behind me, but she understands the culture of our company, which is about people and about growth, and we're a team. And so she gets all that, and that's why it makes perfect sense to make her our head brewer.
Yeah, and literally you guys are joining us off like the brewery floor today. Like you were brewing beer all day, and now you're joining us on the podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's the cool thing, is that we're actually in two locations. I'm at our production facility, but Anna's we're about to open a new location on Walnut Street in Johnson City. So Anna, you're over at Walnut, aren't you?
That's right. I'm over at Walnut, and if you hear any loud noises, there's a couple people working on the new bar over here, and a couple new walls are coming in and out. So I didn't realize I'd have company over here.
That's all right. We love the sound of progression, which is what that is. It's a new brewery's getting built out. Yes, please. We'll take it.
I know. I gotta love
Add
it.
to the noise. By the way, you guys have just come off, because you're at the brewery, you just came off a double, would you call it double batch today?
So we have
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say we have a 7-barrel brew house right now, and we have 5 7-barrel fermenters and then 5 15-barrel fermenters. So on the days that we have like some of our flagship beers, like our Peaches, our Golden Ale, our Apollo IPA, things like that, we'll do a double brew day like this so we get a larger amount. So I'll come in the morning, and then Eric will come in around like 11 or 12 and start the second mash to fill up those 15-barrel fermenters.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it just allows you to make more beer to put out to the masses. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And then you do split it up then.
Oh yes, yeah. Both of us put in our time on a double alone, and it's not for the faint of heart. It can be done, but it's better to do it as a team for sure.
That's really neat. Yeah, we're starting to do some. I mean, this is our 11th year, guys, and we're still like small time and scraping and clawing. And you guys know this about us, is that we're big believers in the self-distribution side of things. And so we've started slowly doing some distribution up and down I-40 there, and a couple places around Nashville there. But It's nothing huge or anything, and we've still got a lot of ways to go as far as improving the quality and consistency of our product. And that's the better thing about Anna too. There's a correlation with making her head brewer and the beer getting better. So.
Well, I am currently drinking, by the way. Yeah, I am currently drinking. Look what I'm drinking from Johnson City Brewing.
Yep. And I've got one too, and I picked it up today, and it's brand new for me. And Eric, you probably dropped it off over at Main Street. It's your Oktoberfest. Main Street had it over there today. Yeah.
Eric, I got to thank you because you gave me this beer. Not personally, because I didn't get to see you, but when I was in Johnson City a couple of weeks ago, I actually walked in there and I was talking. Well, I texted you and I'm like, "Hey, I'm at your brewery," and then I walked up and I was talking to the guy that worked there, and he's like, "By the way, Eric says to give you some beer," and I'm like, "Really?" I was like, "Well, thank you very much." And I also have something else. One of the biggest magnets I've ever seen in my life. Look at this. I came with props tonight.
That's tremendous.
Just smack it right on there.
It's funny you say that because I went to go grab it off my refrigerator for the podcast because I wanted to show you guys and show everybody. It's like, oh, by the way, here's one other thing that I got at your brewery. And I wanted to say, I had a really fun time there. I really did. Of course, I came in for the Speedway Classic at the Bristol Motor Speedway, and one of my goals was to come a day ahead of time because I was staying with some friends the days after, a little bit at an Airbnb, a little bit away from Johnson City. But I spent the night in Johnson City. And, one of the main purposes was to go to your brewery there and like the little downtown area. And I really enjoyed myself, man.
We really, really appreciate you visiting, man. You guys taking the time to give a shout out to our brewery and breweries our size, across the state too. Cause, you guys know all too well, small business can be challenging. And like I said, just appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny because I loved the diversity on your taproom menu, and I think that goes back to both of you that brew the beer there, because I'll read off what I got on a flight. It was a sea salt and lime lager, the Wild Frontier lager. I also got your your blackberry IPA, and the Butterscotch Oktoberfest, which we want to get an Oktoberfest in a few minutes. And then I came back the next day and had the 1884. So I cleaned up at your brewery, man. You guys had a lot of great beer, and every single one I really loved quite a bit.
We do some weird stuff, and that's kind of our history. And Anna's done a really nice job over the past years that she's been in production here, because this year, for better or for worse, we're going to be producing the least amount of unique beers that we ever have. And we're still producing a lot of different kinds, but the first year we opened, we produced more than 300 different beers. And it was just, experiment, which, coming from being a home brewer, that's the fun of it. And so we're trying to, as far as an identity, we're trying to figure out how do we, make more of the beers that sell real well, but at the same time, for the production side and for we brewers, still allow for some creativity. And Anna's been able to do some of that in production.
Well, and it's funny because I saw the other day on Instagram that you guys are going to be releasing a beer, and maybe by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be out already, called Biscuits and Jam. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about that beer? Because that sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah, Anna, why don't you tell them about it?
Yes, so that one was actually pre me working for the company. I don't know when the first year was that you brewed that, but the unique one about that, we're kind of known for a lot of our fruited things, but this one in particular doesn't actually have any fruit in it. That jam flavor comes from the French hop. It's a Barbe Rouge hop, and it has flavors and aromas of strawberries.
Wow.
And so the biscuits come from the malty, like the biscuity malt that we use in that, but then the actual jam portion of that is a hop, not a fruit. So that's a unique one that Eric came up with before I was there. And we haven't been able to brew that one. I think this is the first time we'll have released that in a little over 2 years. So we're all excited to have that one back.
Wow. Has it always been the same time of year when you guys have released that?
No, that's been varying depending on time of year. We used to try to release that during the fall, but then we, throughout the year, would release various red ales. And if you release too many of the same type of beer throughout the year, they kind of just overshadow each other. So we have a We have a Road Bowler Irish Red that comes out for St. Patrick's Day. And then we have a Cardinal Park Red Ale that comes out during the summer a lot of the time. So it's kind of a picking and choosing between Cardinal Park and biscuits. And this year we were able to do biscuits.
Talk about the one, Eric, you texted me earlier today. You have one dropping today, right? If it hasn't dropped already. The Big Orange Creamsicle Double IPA. Are you kidding me? How delicious does that sound? Talk about that beer.
Yeah, well, I can talk to that one just a little bit. Is that this week, getting back into, we love college football, or at least I do, and really the season started last weekend a little bit, but getting going this week. And I think the Vols are going down to play, was it Syracuse in Atlanta? And of course, we have a university here. Steve, you may have seen it while you were driving by campus and that kind of thing, ETSU, which, it's crazy. When Kat and I moved here something like 14 years ago, ETSU was, kind of middling, smaller school in the state school, but now it's just really exploded. Got a lot of students, and so we've made a special beer in honor of them called Blue and Gold, which of course is their colors. And a lot of our employees over the years, have gone to ETSU. So that we're releasing Blue and Gold, a fresh batch. That's one of our flagships, but we're releasing a fresh batch of that this year. And then Big Orange Creamsicle is a double IPA, hazy double IPA, and it's brewed with Mosaic and Azaka hops. It's got some cryo going on in there, but it's also brewed with orange juice, some milk sugar, and I think that's it. So it's one that's mainly focused on the aroma and flavor of everything, but I'm really excited about this one.
This sounds delicious. I saw a picture of the can too. It looks amazing. What's the ABV on that one?
Anna, what did we end up with ABV on that?
That one came out about 7.3 or 7.5.
Nice.
That's where
really
that
nice
one landed. It used to be a little higher. We actually brought it back a little bit because we wanted to be able to serve it as pints, especially if we're kind of releasing it as like a football beer. And so an 8.5 pint is pretty hefty. So we backed that one off a little bit and worked on the hops on this round. And I'm really happy with how this round came out.
That's great. That's a really nice ABV, I think, for a double IPA. It's the sweet spot, I think.
I got a question for you guys. Yeah. Earlier, Anna, since you guys know beer pretty well, right? You guys are craft beer enthusiasts and love to taste different things. So Anna and I were talking about this earlier. And by the way, Alex, our assistant distribution manager, just walked in here, and so we got some kegs that are cranking around. He just did a bunch of deliveries. But we were having this conversation earlier about styles of beer. And let me ask you guys this. So we were saying that, like Anna said earlier, that you can only release so many red ales or amber ales, that kind of thing, else they start getting lost. But what one style of beer do you think that you could release a ton of and the public would still drink a bunch of them?
For me, and I don't know if I'm in the minority, I love black IPAs.
Well, and I love Oktoberfest season. So when this season comes around, I'm a big Oktoberfest guy, and so even though I know sometimes they're not drinkable all year long, I wish we could find a way where they would be, because that's really the kind of style of beer that I like. Although I will try almost anything. But yeah, black IPAs, as Scott said, are really good too.
Black IPAs, okay, yeah, okay, yeah. Blackstone, those guys make a good one. Have you ever tried Dark Matters? Or dark matter? Yeah, we did a chocolate milkshake like dark IPA, and that was a different style. We've done a Cascadian dark too, which I really enjoyed. It was a dark IPA, but Cascade all the way through, and fresh Cascade. But that's, like I said, that's a beautiful and wonderful style, but you don't often see it on the tap lists.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. That's a good.
Yeah,
and a lot of brewers just don't make them anyway, and when you see them, they're pretty rare.
I actually remember when I first started working and I was in the tap room, you had just released a black IPA. It was a very unfamiliar style to me when I first started over there. It was interesting to try that. It actually may have been a black milkshake IPA.
Oh wow, yeah, that sounds really good.
Yep.
I'm immediately going for it. Like, I know it, I won't be disappointed. I know it's going to be good. And like, hey, you guys have one. Let's get it. Yeah. I get excited when I see those.
Exactly.
And I'd like to go back to you for a minute. Can you tell us about kind of your journey over the 6 years with Johnson Brewing and Johnson City Brewing, and how your journey has been to get to the point where you're at now?
Yeah, so I was a customer at the brewery before I started working there, and hadn't been in probably a couple years, and stopped by. And Eric's wife Kat was working in the tap room at the time, and it was at the very start of her transition into being a firefighter. So she was training for the like the school portion of that, and they were. But when she was catching up with me, she asked what I was doing, and at the time I was bartending in a local pizza spot around here. And so she, like, her eyes lit up, and she was like, "Oh, so you have your alcohol serving license?" And I was like, "I sure do." And she asked if I'd be interested in pouring there, and I'd always enjoyed their product. So I interviewed with Eric probably less than a week after that, and started fairly soon after that. And then as Kat transitioned into the firefighting, I took over some of the management of the downtown tap room. And at the time, we only had one location. So it was just managing the people we had. We had a really small crew at that point. We still have a small crew, but comparatively, I think we only had like 4 people on staff at that point or something like that. And then from there, I think of fall of that year, so I'd been around for about 6 months. We started doing our first packaging off of a Blickman, like, single canner beer gun type situation. And I kind of transitioned into that a little bit. And then we had just started doing that packaging when COVID hit, which we didn't have any way of knowing that was going to happen. But that ended up being what got us through COVID, was being able to do all the packaging. So I rapidly went from like a four-ish shifts a week in the tap room to like full-time canning to get cans out into the public. And so that's how my production journey started. So I was able to maintain employment through COVID at the brewery by single canning like full time with my coworker at the time. And then after we kind of made it through that transition period, that's when Boone's Creek was purchased, was the summer of 2020. So our second location. And from there, it was we were needing more product, and Eric was at that point still very involved in the production side of it, but asked if I'd be interested in apprenticing into some of the brewing side of that, which when I walked in a little over a year before that, had no idea that would ever be a possibility. So winter of 2020, I started training with Eric on the brew system after being around and doing kegging and canning and various things in the production side of it. And from there, my goal was kind of just to alleviate some of the production pressure that Eric had on him, so that he was able to not have to be doing all of the physical labor and all the administrative labor and all of that. And then it's kind of from there transitioned into just a gradual communication between he and I of being able to help a little bit with ordering the raw materials, transitioning into doing some of the brew schedule together. We still very much do it together, but it's kind of just been an organic process into taking the physical production side off, so that he's able to work on the business and doesn't have to physically be in the business. You know, it's having to say, "Hey, I know you've had a really busy week, but I really need you on Saturday to dry hop this beer for me." It's getting to the point where his time is valuable enough spent elsewhere that it's nice to have someone who their job is to keep track of what's going on the production side and make sure we have a consistent product, make sure we have a consistent team over there, and that he can rely on us having consistency in product. Because in such a small business, one of the worst things you can do is have a beer that tastes great and then you run out of it and you never have it available. So we talk about that all the time. There's the tiers of consistency, availability, and also like the uniqueness of what we put out as well. So, we've gradually worked on that, and it's been I've loved the progression of that. I feel like it's been very natural. There hasn't been like a period where I didn't feel like we were able to talk through kind of the direction of how things were going. And that's been a really special experience for me.
Anna, what is the most fun part of your job?
It's the most fun.
Yeah, I want to know too.
I still love, especially at this point, because I used to do like a hybrid for a while. I was still like a couple shifts a month in the tap room. At this point, we have a really solid team in our tap room, so I don't do that anymore. So I still love when I can get to an event that we're throwing at one of our locations and not have any responsibility related, but I get to look around on the property and see people really enjoy what we make. I am the first to say that I'm not like the beer expert, the brewing expert, anything like that, but I do love seeing somebody enjoy something that like I got to help make. That's a really special part of it. Our week in, week out is production is a really physical job. It can be like a mentally draining portion of it, where you're just like, you're in it, you're doing the same things throughout the week. Your weeks look pretty consistent, but being able to see like the end result of that, I've always really enjoyed that a lot.
Well, and an observation since I was there on your Main Street location is everybody there, I mean, that I ran into that I was sitting there, having a beer with, whether they were local people and some of them were, and then I ran into some fellow Reds fans the next day when I was in there as well. Everybody was having a good time, you guys. I mean, everybody was talking about how great that, your beer was and how much they enjoyed it. In fact, there was a guy who I ran into from Cincinnati, and he was asking me, was I going to any other breweries in the area and stuff like that? And I said, yeah, I'm going to try to make a couple. And he was talking about your all's place, and he said that was the number one place for him to want to go to based on reviews and things like that. And I said, well, I've also met the owner, not in person, but through here. And I said it was my first stop in Johnson City, and I wanted to get there as well. So it was just an observation that you guys had a bit of a Cheers vibe in there when I went in there, where just a great laid back place where everybody was enjoying the beer and having a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's our goal there, is that kind of Cheers place. And I think a lot of breweries or small breweries have that goal, which is, you feel welcome there. You feel like anybody's welcome there. And I mean, without getting specific, and maybe you guys have too, I've been to breweries before, which is like, here's your beer, give me the money, and that's about it. Or, we're big believers in beer education. Like Anna said, we don't know everything about beer, but we like to think we can share a little bit about it if we make it. With our customers, and it's bigger than beer. It's more than just making and selling beer. It's about having community and feeling welcome. And that. Thank you for that commentary, Steve, because that's what we're trying to do. And as we grow, as Kat and I, who are the founders, get more and more detached from every single day being in there, that's one of our concerns, is that maybe that kind of shine rubs off a little bit or goes away a little bit. And so that's good to hear. Appreciate you sharing that.
We've been in places and you feel like you're bothering someone to order a beer. we're like, I don't think I just even want us here. Yeah, they don't speak. You ask me a question.
That's something we talk about too, is that the handing off of the head brewer position was a really, really big deal. But the other thing that's tough is when you're not the face of Eric used to be in there pouring all the time, and I used to be in there pouring all the time, and that person is the face of your company during the period of time that they're in there. And I think that our taproom managers have done a really great job under like the guidance of Eric, helping along with those hiring processes of bringing people in who don't act like you're causing them a problem to be in there. Yeah. We want people to feel excited to be in there and to feel welcome and to tell us all about their travel down from Michigan to see their mother-in-law or whatever's going on. So that's something that's, I think, been fostered and set an example by Eric, and speaks a lot to the culture that he and Kat built when they first started it.
You mentioned it. Whoever that person is or those people are is the face of the brewery. That role is very, very important. It's obvious, but man, it's so important. Yeah, if you're talking to someone and you want a good feeling that you've been somewhere, and you talk to your friends about it after you've left, you're like, man, that was great. You guys should go there. Everybody's friendly and the beer was great, and it's part of that whole experience. So.
Anna, is there a beer so far that you have brewed that's become your personal favorite?
It's funny you mentioned you had the sea salt lime on your flight. That was, we've been trying for a number of years to build kind of the beer that's really accessible for people to come in and say, what tastes like a Bud Light? What tastes like a domestic? Like what tastes like that? And a lot of times you have to kind of steer them in a direction that is close, but not like super close to that. And we're never going to be the big guys like that. But that Wild Frontier series kind of that we're trying to build was part of that. And Eric worked for a long time to get sort of that base lager recipe down, where we have a really simple grain bill, low ABV, easy to drink. We started putting it in 6-packs. And then I had the opportunity to help build kind of like the summer series version of that. And so that sea salt lime is one that currently I'm proud of, that we were able to put out there. That the goal for that was to have a beer that tasted like you had already squeezed your own lime in it without having to squeeze your own lime in it, and is just light and refreshing and tastes like summer in a glass. And that one was one that I'm I'm really excited about it. It sounds like a simple one, and it is, and that was the point. But to achieve that and get that drinkability was something that I'm proud of.
But the ones I mentioned earlier I had on a flight, and I was like, every single one I would have again. I mean, I would go back and definitely have it again, and that's always something you want. So, to the both of you, how much planning goes into now to where you want to take this as far as your beer styles, unleashing new beers and releasing new beers, in the company couple months ahead of time? How does that work out for the both of you now?
We're pretty fortunate at this point over the years to have built a fairly consistent release schedule throughout the year. Occasionally we'll drop something just fully new that we've never had before, but we have certain beers that do come out at certain times and kind of give us a rough calendar for the entire year, which helps not only with the releases in the tap room, but also just sets yourself up for the brew schedule throughout the year as well. So Eric and I mean, we overlap a lot throughout the week. Like it's not like I'm just over in production and never see him and he sits in some office somewhere and only takes meetings. Like he's in it and he does that as well. So we get the chance to kind of be like, let's make sure we're remembering that pumpkin pie ale releases, and we need to make sure that's on the schedule. And it's a kind of constant back and forth. And even though that title of head brewer has been handed to me, that doesn't mean that I'm over there kind of like just deciding what's going on with the beers. We have a good formula. I think we have good recipes already, and it's just working on improving the recipes that we already have and kind of capitalizing on some of those seasonal releases that we have. I was going to say, Eric, does that feel like about true to how that process goes?
Yeah, and that's the trick with being a small business too, is that there's the production side and what you got to brew, and then there's the business side. It's like a lot of people will come to us and say, I'd like to start a brewery, and they say, what's the number one thing you tell me? And say, well, there's a difference between brewing and the business of brewing. And so, what we actually produce is affected by, obviously trends and what sells through our tap rooms. And of course, July was our biggest distribution month we've had in our 11-year history. So, thank you. Yeah. And that's a round of applause for our entire team. We added another full-time person in production this year. We added a bigger canning machine. I think I sent you guys a video of the cans coming through, and it's kind of, it's kind of measured growth. We're a growth company for sure, which is a little kind of against the trend of where the industry is going right now. But we're growing and doing it incrementally. And so there's a number of things that factor into from a business standpoint and how we grow and what our plans and vision is. And then, what we end up producing at the brew house. So it's a nice combination of things, what's going on with business and what do we got to make and that kind of thing. But it's done a world of good for me for Anna to take on that position, especially with us working to open a new place. And as she said earlier, I'm able to work on the business instead of working in it all the time. And as you can see, I'm still here. I'm still brewing, which I don't ever want to give up brewing and being part of that process, because that was the fun of it. That's the whole reason I did this. But we're more businessy than we've ever been. Kat and I are the founders and the majority owners, but we do have 34 co-owners, shareholders that are mostly local here. And so I also spend a good bit of time doing investor relations, and all of it's the most businessy it's ever been, but it's also still a whole lot of fun, and we're able to not only grow as a company, but grow as individuals.
I wonder if we could change gears a little bit. Eric, it wasn't that long ago, you walked across the state of Rhode Island. I watched your journey over those several days, and it was hot. You don't have to tell you, right? It was hot all the way up there. It was hot everywhere. Talk about that experience a little bit, right? It was over 3 or 4 days, and it was like 100 degrees every single day. But, and you did it for a certain cause, too.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, and you guys, thanks to you guys, I think we're donors and supporting and sharing things and all that. And really, really appreciate you guys. And well, the crazy part is that, so I may have told you guys this. The story goes is that I've done several long distance walks. I love going for a walk for causes, long walks for causes. And so, a few years back, I walked across Tennessee for St. Jude, and 20 years ago this year, I walked ocean to ocean all the way across the United States for American Cancer Society. That was a long walk, and done various walks along the way over the years and that kind of thing. But last year, I told my wife Kat, I said, I'm getting the itch. I gotta do a walk again. And she said, we can't have you leave for a month or whatever it is. And so she said it's either Rhode Island or Hawaii. And I think we both would have liked to have gone to Hawaii, but that wasn't in the cards. And so we picked Rhode Island. And it was only 28 miles from the Connecticut border to the Massachusetts border, and it was only 2 days of walking, believe it or not. So I did 15 the first day and 13 the second. But as you pointed out, the kicker was it was 104 and 105 on those subsequent days, and the guy on the radio said it's the hottest on record at that point. And yeah, and I mean, I lost pounds and pounds, and I lost several toenails as well. If you guys want, I can put my feet, I can take my brew boots off and show you my toenails.
Yeah, but we were on the couch.
It'll ruin your dinner for sure. But the cool thing was we were raising money for St. Jude. I think we raised. I gotta check because I gotta get out there on the old Facebook page. It's called Walk Across Rhode Island, and I think we raised about $2,000 for St. Jude. And the funny thing was, I didn't tell you guys this. Yeah, $2,000 for St. Jude. That's good, right? But we came back from it, and there was an influencer. You guys may know him as like a YouTube guy named Ryan Trahan. Do you know that name? Very young people, very big on YouTube. But anyway, long story. Our two daughters, who are in 6th and 8th grade now, they said, let's watch these guys. And he and his wife, they're in their 20s, and they're traveling around to the Airbnbs, the best Airbnbs in the U.S., just driving and raising money for St. Jude. And of course, they got corporate sponsors and everything. And I was proud we raised $2,000 for St. Jude. And I think at the end of their little journey, not little, but big journey, they raised like 11 million or something like that. And my girls were like, Dad, why didn't you raise 11 million? I was like, well, we burn up 104, 105 degrees. We everybody's got to do their part. Yeah, I turned 44 yesterday, and I'm feeling every bit of it. I can't walk long distances like I used to. So,
you guys recently had a pretty cool social media post, and maybe you've done them before, but Anna, you were featured on it, and it was you know where I'm going with this. I thought it was great, and I've seen this trend. Somebody else is throwing beer at you, right? Like right at your face, and you have to guess what the beer is. And there were 3 of them in the one I saw. I said day 1 or something. You were 3 for 3. You got them all. But the last one he actually threw the cup at you too. With this, was that planned?
I have to step in for Blake on this because if you watch it, it progresses to a little bit more enthusiastic, we'll say, every throw. Yes. And I actually wanted him to throw every cup the way that he threw the last, but preferably at my chest and not at my face. Yeah. And so he came out for the first one, and you can only be dry for the first throw. So after that, you're going to be wet, and you're going to know that one of the beer has already been thrown. So he's like, I'll just redo it. I'll redo it. And I was like, no, we'll just have to keep going. So his first one was so gentle that it actually barely splashed on me. Blake is very he's a good friend and also a very respectful guy, so he wasn't trying to smash me with a beer. Yeah. And at the end I said, Blake, we've gotten 2 beers and this has not been there's not a whole lot that's been going on. I need you to really throw the next one. And I think he did not intend for it to hit me in the face, but man, the end of the cup really hit the bottom of my nose and my forehead and just spewed off the side.
That's funny.
It was a good time. We like to occasionally do fun things like that, and they often do end up in me being covered in some amount of beers. That trend is fun. We occasionally hop on whatever trend's going around, and I actually had no idea whether or not I'd be able to guess, especially on that first one. It just splashed on my chest. I had to go strictly off of smell. So it was a fun time.
I was going to ask you, were you worried going into that you wouldn't get it right?
I was, and I was like, if I mess it up, that's okay. We'll probably do another video of it, and I don't. We do a flight downtown sometimes. This was Blake's idea. Blake was the one who was throwing the beer, where he'll do a mystery flight, and he'll pour you 4 beers that he chooses, and then if you can guess them correctly, you get a discount off that flight. And even that, I think people occasionally, because we have such a large tap amount over it, especially downtown, it can throw people off. So I really wasn't sure with the throwing just on my body how that was going to go.
Yeah.
It worked
Well
out in my
done.
favor. We'll see if next time I'm able to get 3 more.
Well done. It made for a good video. It really did. It was a good post.
That's
I
great.
did see one. Somebody else had done one. I don't know who it was. I know it was a couple of buddies do it. And the guy he threw the beer at him. He threw the whole can at his face.
Well, the impressive ones are when they'll do all domestics. So you're just distinguishing between like Miller and Yingling and like Bud Light, and that would be really, really difficult. I was at least able to know that we have some variety on draft, and I could probably smell or taste something that was different. But I saw one where a winery did it, which is throwing red wine is a lot more invasive than beer. And the owner, it was the owner, so this would have been like Eric was wrapped up in a trash bag around her neck. And
Wow.
they threw red wine on her, and she was like, "Ah."
I told Steve recently that he could do that to me. He could throw the beer at me, and I'm surprised he's not taking me up on that.
Yeah, we get arrange that. We just have to find some beer that we don't want to waste.
That's
And we're
the
certainly
thing.
not going to do Johnson City beer. I mean, it's too good to,
No.
too good to drink and throw on anybody. You know, we'll have to
At least-
find some crappy beer out there.
Well, they were getting it from the well, though, so they probably had had as much as you wanted. Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Well, and if you do any video like that, you always have people who are like, "What are you wasting that beer for?" And it's like, well, it was 3 pints of beer, and we got a good video out of it, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed some of it. Some of it went in my mouth, so that was
And in the grand scheme of things, you're hoping that produces more people to go drink more beer, and then
Exactly.
you waste one, but you gain some more followers or drinkers or whatever. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Hey, how much?
That's actually maybe one of my favorite parts of my job is that sometimes we do get to do
There you go.
things.
When I saw it said day 1, I was looking for more posts after that. I like, is this going to be a series?
Yeah, really.
It is, but we might do our next one like next week or something. Well, I have to let my clothes dry out a little bit.
We'll be looking for it.
Eric, we should have had somebody do that to you while you were walking. It may have woke you up a little more and motivated you to keep going a little bit more. You know, throw some beer on the guy. You know.
Yeah, I would have appreciated that. Have like a little a table every mile or something like that with some cups of. I think my wife and my daughters would have actually really enjoyed splashing me in the face with beers. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, keep going, Dad.
Hey, we know the whole beer trends and everything. It changes. It seems like it changes by the week. What beers are going to be popular now? How much brainstorming goes in between the both of you of like, where are we going to be at in 6 months? Is it becoming more difficult? Is it easier for you? How is it at this point?
Yeah, we do some. We've gotten to a point. This is probably the first year that we've ever identified these are our flagship beers. And so we're producing more than ever of those flagship beers, and we're selling those beers. So, we've kind of identified what people like to drink either through our tap rooms or in our area. And that, I'm not so sure. I mean, you hear about, the hazy IPAs all the time. You hear about, pastry stouts, now pastry sours, Zool and Southern Grist, I think, are really good at making those styles. And honestly, those two guys, with the acquisition, which happened, happening as we speak, they're, if you said, name the, or at least 2 of the hottest breweries in Tennessee, I mean, Zool and Southern Grist are putting out stuff that people are clamoring for. And so sometimes you look at breweries, we do, and we have, we have the luxury of being over the hill from Asheville too, which, those guys, they've got 40 breweries and putting out all kinds of interesting stuff. But places like Burial over there that just, I mean, those guys can do some hazy IPAs and some really good Pilsners and things like that. So sometimes you look to the other breweries, and then sometimes you look at, there you go, Apollo. And then sometimes you look at, places like Kent Taylor, over at Blackstone. Those guys do a lot of traditional styles, and man, those are good beer drinking beers, and they do those styles really well. So, I don't know that, for a while there, the brewing industry seemed like it was, something new every 6 months. But it seems like it's, I don't know, to you guys, or maybe Anna, you can talk to this and your experience and what you're feeling, but it feels like that kind of like rapid trend every 6 months or every year, like what's the next thing? I don't know. It feels like that's slowed down just a little bit.
I think that it has. I think there's been, we've seen a little bit of a plateau in like the next hottest thing. I think at this point, I don't know when craft beer was the biggest, the most booming, probably in the early 2010s, 2000, whatever that period was. But I would say that at this point it's leveled out. And to kind of go back to the initial question that we asked you at the beginning, what do you think could be on a tap list at all times and it's going to do well? One of the ones that I see everywhere I go is that you'll go somewhere and it'll be, out of 24 taps, 12 will be some version of an IPA. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of an ongoing joke in the craft industry sometimes, that like, oh, they released another IPA, but they do sell and they do well, and you can release 13 different variations kind of a similar type of IPA, and people are still going to come and want to try it. And I also think that we're seeing a little bit of a return to some of the more traditional pilsners and lagers and easy drinking beers. A little bit of that, I think that high ABV craze has maybe worn off a little bit. You still have the enthusiasts who that's what they want, but a lot of times people want a 4.5% or a 5% beer, and something that's just going to be enjoyable for 1 or 2 or 3, but is something that they're familiar with and is not going to like blow their socks off necessarily. We still like to toy with the creativity of all of it, and I think Johnson City Brewing in particular is kind of known for that, like nothing is off limits. We just released a sauerkraut Oktoberfest, which is a once a year type thing. It's a very, very small amount, but it's something that we do every year, and it's something that we've become known for, at least locally, and we still do things like that.
Steve, did you get the chance to try that? Was it on tap when you were at the tap room, the sauerkraut?
It was not, but we wanted to jump into Oktoberfest a little more on the podcast, because here we are in Oktoberfest season, and I was really fascinated, as I mentioned, when I came in there, because I did have the Butterscotch Oktoberfest, and I think you also had your other traditional Marzen in there as well. And I was curious as to the idea behind a Butterscotch Oktoberfest, because I would never thought about that. And I thought, wow, and I could taste the butterscotch, but I thought it was a great combination with the Oktoberfest beer. And in fact, we were at a place called Deep South Growlers, which is a tap room here in Nashville. And one of the locations is right around the corner from Scott's house. And Abby Adderton, who is the daughter of one of the owners, I was telling her about it, and she's like, that sounds tremendous. Talk about that, the idea behind the Butterscotch Oktoberfest.
Yeah, I think that was, I want to say that was either the first or second year that I worked there. We kind of developed that one a little bit. That was a little bit based off of, a lot of times, especially at that point in the brewery, we would release a base of something and then some variation off of that. And so often when we would plan our release schedule, we'd say, what's the thing that we want to try a small amount of? And I think the goal with that one was kind of like the like butterbeer, like Harry Potter, like that idea of like a light and kind of like sweeter version of like a traditional style. I think we talked about caramel for a little bit, and then we talked about butterscotch, and I don't remember specifically why we landed on butterscotch, but it was kind of a we'll give this a try. And I think the first year we probably only made, I don't know, like a couple barrels worth of that. And now at this point, it's almost split down the middle with the traditional Oktoberfest and the butterscotches. So we always make sure that we have that on draft, and we also make sure we have it on cans at this point. Eric, do you remember how we landed specifically on butterscotch?
Yeah, well, I think it was probably just experimenting with things,
Yeah.
And I know that it's really fun. There's a kind of a funny side story to this, guys, is that we're about to have our, what is it, sixth or seventh, maybe sixth Oktoberfest that we're having on September 20th. And but we've made the butterscotch for 3 or 4 years, I think, and maybe the pretzel version for 1 or 2 years, and same with the sauerkraut. So we have essentially a flight of those beers. But the funny joke, ongoing joke about the butterscotch is that we use real butterscotch to make those beers on top of the Marzen. And I've gotten ribbed and pinged by not only other brewers, but by craft beer enthusiasts online because butterscotch can be known as an off flavor aroma, like you made a bad beer kind of thing. And I've always had to say, no, we intentionally are putting butterscotch in there and doing that as a beer. So it's like one of those flavorings or kinds of ingredients that it can be known as an off flavor in there, but is the real deal. So like apples would be the same thing. That can be an off flavor and that kind of thing. Horse blanket, or farmhouse kind of things. There can be things that are, actual off flavors. But when we tried the butterscotch, it was kind of a funny thing because I was getting pinged and still to this day get pinged a little bit about, hey man, did you guys put butterscotch in there, or is it just you made a bad beer and tried to palm that sucker off? It's real. I mean, it's real butterscotch. So, but people like it, and to Anna's point there, it's just part of our experimenting and trying to have fun with it and do some different things. Not just hey, we're going up against who are the guys like the main German houses like Paulaner and the guys that have been making Marzens or Fest beers for hundreds of years, and oh my goodness, they're so delicious, and they give me brewer's jealousy and all that kind of thing. So just be able to mix it up, and hopefully we're still living in the world where people come to small breweries and tap rooms to try something different. And if you've come there and Scott, I saw that you were drinking Apollo 13 IPA, which is one that we've pretty much made from the beginning. Of course, that recipe, the one that you're drinking out of that can, is a whole lot different than the original one that we first made. The reason why we called it Apollo 13, it was after the Apollo 13 mission because it was a near disaster the first time we brewed it. And, so we still like to have fun with it. And all four of the regular Marzen, I love drinking that one, especially off a draft. It's real tasty. And the butterscotch and the pretzel and the sauerkraut. The sauerkraut, Steve, I'm kind of happy you didn't get to try that one because it definitely smells better than it tastes.
I would have tried it though. I'll try almost anything. I would have tried it, my friend.
Totally
I would have tried it.
I think that one tastes better than it smells. That smell is, the nose on that one is strong. You put that one up to your nose and you're like, I'm not so sure about this.
Does a little bit of sauerkraut go a long way when you're brewing that?
It does. And yeah, making it that day is always funny because every time we pull it out, we're like, what are we doing over here?
What are we doing? Are there other Oktoberfest version beers that you're gonna have out during the season here?
Those are our four ones that we usually do. We kind of release our Oktoberfest in tiers. We first release just the base and then the butterscotch, and then the second round that we brew, we pull off the pretzel and the sauerkraut, and we have a flight release, and then the third release in September is set for the actual Oktoberfest event that we have at the end of that month. So we try to keep things rolling with the butterscotch throughout, and the pretzel. Sauerkraut is definitely a one-time thing, but other than that, I don't think we've tried anything else. I don't know that we're going to do anything else this year. Anyway,
I think it's great. You've got multiple variants of it, though. Not a lot of people do that. It's just the one, and I love the idea of the butterscotch. I haven't had it, but I think it's a really nice pairing.
Yeah, it ends up working out, and I think it literally was just sometimes we're looking at some extra ingredients we have, or sometimes there's an idea that came along. One of our former employees said, what if we put sauerkraut in there? And we said, we'll give it a try and see what it tastes like. So we'll try anything once, and it worked out pretty well. Is there an ingredient that you guys think would go well on a Marzen lager?
That's a good question.
You mentioned caramel, and I would think that would be okay too. I think that might be a nice pairing, like a nice, Marzen or something. God, I don't know.
Maybe a little bit of chocolate. You think? Maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, we put chocolate in beers for sure before.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed sauerkraut though, but I would try it in a heartbeat.
We did there was a few years back. You guys know what ramps are?
I don't think so.
Ramps are wild onions that are grown in our area here. But there's actually a whole festival that they have for ramps, these wild onions. And so one year we got asked if we'd make a ramp beer, and we made a ramp pilsner, so wild onion pilsner, and used the ramps and stuffed it down in the keg, and then racked the pilsner right on top of it. And it's so funny. It's one of those things that kind of like sauerkraut that you'd say, I don't know, I guess I'll try a sip of this thing. But I'll never forget there was this lady out of Indiana that bought a bunch of them. And her husband was saying, no, we don't want to take any with us. And she said, yeah, make us a bunch of crowlers of it. And it definitely left you with some breath after you drink it. It's interesting at the minimum because I actually really enjoy, you've got well-balanced beers, then you've got sweet beers, and then you've got some savory beers. And so we made a pizza beer a few years ago that was, tomato paste and basil in there on top of a beer, amber ale that was made with coriander. And it was a savory beer, but I probably drank 3 or 4 of those, and it's just kind of being open-minded to what a beer could possibly be, and that's part of the beauty, I think, of craft beer, and that may be what's left, is that being open to trying different things, and then knowing what you enjoy, and knowing what you enjoy, and knowing what you don't enjoy.
I want to tell you, obviously, I think one of the first beers I had when you brought us some here in Nashville was the Peaches, which was outstanding and tremendous. I've only seen a variation of that at one other brewery, and we were, Scott and I were at this brewery called Little Miami Brewing in Cincinnati in mid-May, and they had a Peaches beer up there, similar to what you guys had. I haven't seen too many of those around, though. I thought, but yeah, I mean, I think Peaches, as you said, is one of your flagships. It's tremendous.
We brew beers that we like to drink ourselves, but we obviously brew beers that our customers will drink. And somehow, Anna, you can talk to this too, someone who kind of came along several years ago and saw who we were and what beers we made. But we end up doing a lot of fruited beers. And Peaches was an accident there, and by far it's our best-selling product. And people will say it's pretty unique. People will say, I don't normally drink beer, but I can drink that, which is a good place to be for business. But a lot of our beers have ended up being fruited, and people drink a ton of them. So I don't know, Anna, what have you seen over the years as far as our beers and what we've done there?
Yeah, I think that the experimental stuff has always been something that the brewery's been known for, but then also the fruited. I mean, some of our best sellers year round and then throughout the summer have fruit. So we have the Peaches beer, we have Blue and Gold that we've brewed for like ETSU, and that's a golden ale with blueberries. We have one of our best sellers this summer was Blackberry IPA, and that's on a hoppy beer, but that blend worked out well. I'm trying to think, apple butter golden ale is one of our better seasonal releases. We could probably keep that one on year round, but there's only so many flagships that you can keep up with at a time. I'm trying to think of some of the other fruited ones, but I would say that we're probably best known for like the accessibility of the fruited beers, and then also just some of the fun stuff that we do. I was thinking when you were talking about the ramp beer, Eric, I remember there was a rosemary IPA that we did, and it's like you would pour that, and rosemary goes a long way, and so you would just smell the rosemary like crazy. And I know that somebody took crowlers of it to cook potatoes and like a pot roast in. Like they took a crowler just for that. And we've done lavender things. I made a horrible, but I'll say it because it was me who made it. I made a really not good mole lager one year that was just one keg, and I like looked up all the spices that's like in a traditional like mole sauce, and it was paprika and like garlic, and it just that was one that that one was tough to even get anybody to try like a little 5-ounce taster. We get to try various things, and as we expand as a brewery, we still want to stay true to those roots, but also be able to be taken seriously and also have a product that is a good and solid beer just within the craft brewing industry in general.
And I do want to say, real quick, Scott, sorry to interrupt you there.
No, you're good.
I do want to say the Blackberry IPA when I was at your brewery, because there were several of them on the board that I had, and I'm like, yeah, I want to try something else because I've had peaches and, Hapalo, and you always want to try something different. And your guy working there, I wish I could remember his name. He was real knowledgeable, real nice, and he recommended, he said, are you an IPA guy? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he recommended the Blackberry IPA, and I'll tell you what, that was really a really, really great taste.
I appreciate that. I think that one of the cool things about putting fruit on IPA sometimes is that on their own, those hops have a high level of complexity, and so sometimes it's nice to just let them sit by themselves. But sometimes, like the Big Orange Creamsicle double IPA that we released this week, that kind of just enhances what's going on anyway. The hops that we have in there, the Mosaic and Azaka, are incredibly juicy. Like it's already just as a double IPA, thick and like juicy beer, and to add in just an extra level of orange juice and a little bit of vanilla in there goes a long way to kind of highlight what's already going on.
Yeah, you're making me want to drive right now to Johnson City and get some of these beers. I got to return. Yeah. Oh, okay.
I was gonna say it probably was Blake.
That's great. That's great.
You guys must have a lot of, with all the stuff you do, you guys must have a lot of customers that come in for the crazy stuff, right? For the small batch stuff and the new stuff that comes out. Like I would be that person. Hey, they're dropping something.
Same here.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna go get it. So do you have a lot of those customers? Like no matter what you're dropping, they're gonna try it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's a big part. I mean, that's how I was a customer. Really, there was they used to have this contraption. I think it's called. Did you call it a Randall, Eric? Where it's like that you can actually circulate beer through a closed system, and so they would in this closed like pipe system basically, and then your draft line pours through that separate thing. They would put they put an entire chocolate cake down in there. They put like farm fresh strawberries. They jam them in there. They put I don't know what different hot peppers, things like that. And so then you have your regular beer off the draft that just pours right through that and goes right into your glass. And that was one of the reasons why I would go back, because once a week they would stick something in that Randall and pour a beer through it. And there are a lot of people who have remained faithful to the cause on some of that experimentation.
Even in spite of that, right?
That's right.
I think it would be great. So you're really infusing whatever that thing you're putting in there. You're just infusing the beer with that.
We don't do that as much. We haven't done that in a long time. But when I was first coming as a customer, that was something that you guys did like once a week. I think on like Wednesdays or something.
Oh.
Why not?
That's awesome. Yeah, you're doing that. You're poking beer with hot sticks.
Yeah, now that's a lot of fun. Some of it, I think that the beer industry has gone. Some of it, is about the beer, but where the industry kind of post-COVID it's not just about making and selling beer. It's about having experiences at the tap rooms, and what do you have to do there? You got trivia, or you've got music, or you're poking beers, or whatever it is. It's how are you going to get people to the tap room, because they're going to drink and eat there. We know that, but I think that's evolved a little bit too. Pre-COVID, it was like you could make beers and make interesting things, and people were just coming for beer. Now you gotta have things to do.
Yeah, but I also go back to the Butterscotch IPA because I've never been to any. I drink a lot of Oktoberfest when it comes out, and I've never even seen anybody close to having a Butterscotch IPA. And now I think Johnson City Brewing, man, and I can go out and tell everybody that. Eric, I know. Obviously, you get into Nashville quite often, and we've seen your beer distributed at various locations. Are you trying to do that more? Are you trying to expand your beer out of Johnson City and the other areas?
Yeah, we because we're self-distributed, it's kind of as far as we'd like to go. And some people along I-40 and in Nashville have given us a chance. We really appreciate that, and so. It's a little bit of a tricky thing, as our little business grows, trying to figure out, as we do it ourselves. Really, we're running three businesses because we've got a manufacturing business, we've got our wholesale business, and we've got our retail business, and so juggling those things can be a challenge at times at our size. But we have some plans, especially going into 2026 and beyond, just to continue to incrementally grow our distribution. And at the end of the day, and probably a lot of breweries, especially the small kind of mom and pop ones like us, is that, yeah, we make and sell beer to pay the bills, but we're in the business of building relationships. And so, that's what we do is we slowly build these relationships around in our area, reinforce those relationships, and build relationships along I-40 and in central Tennessee. And those people are nice enough to, give us a tap or put some of our cans there, and also have patience with us to try and improve our product. Is that, we talk about all these different beers. We like to have fun with it, but we've made some good beers along the way. We've made some bad beers along the way. And so at the end of the day, the whole thing is we like to have a nice plan there and be in control of building those relationships and selling those products, because who knows those products better than we do? It's us. And so not major plans to, pick up 100 accounts in central Tennessee, that kind of thing. But it's still surreal and very exciting to be able to say, hey, our cans of beer at Main Street Liquor in Nashville, or, I don't know if you guys knew, we actually got on at the airport, at the Nashville airport. And that took some time and security clearance and all the things you got to do that. But it sometimes is just about doing something new and being able to achieve some things like that, that keep us going and keep this thing exciting after 11 years in business. And we're excited about our future. We don't know all the plans, but we're excited about it.
That's amazing. You've put a lot of miles on your car between Johnson City and Nashville since we've talked last. I know.
That was a week or two ago. That was my 15th trip to Nashville this year. Yeah, so a couple times a month, or sometimes a couple times a month, and we'll do at least one more time the rest of the year. And then, I'm finishing up my 2-year term as president of the state guild. And we'll have our annual meeting in November, and like last year, take all of our managers of Johnson City Brewing to Nashville to have those meetings, meet the other breweries, and all that kind of stuff. And it's always a great time.
That's fantastic. I did see that you stopped at Stokehouse the other day. Yes. Chad and Mike well, I know, and I saw you stuff. And we were talking about traditional beers earlier, and they came to mind right away. Like what they're doing over there, stuff is
Definitely
traditional, and they are wonderful at what they do for the short time that they've been open.
I'd say, yeah, I'm super excited for those guys, because I know they worked hard to get that place open and wanted to have their own place. And of course, that combination, Chad definitely knows what he's doing on the brew house, and Mike does too on the brew side, but the barbecue side, oh my goodness, yeah, that's a good combination there.
Yeah, I was there for lunch on this past Friday, and I left there. I didn't eat dinner, I'll tell you that. I left there so full because I got like everything that was on the board. I get the ribs, I get the sausage link, I get the German salad, potato salad, I got it all.
I went to go visit them I was dropping some beers off, maybe the ones that you're drinking there, off to Main Street Liquor at like 10 in the morning. And I was like, hey, these guys are right next door. You know my style. I'm like popping into town and popping out. So I go over there and I knock on the door, and Chad's in there brewing. And I bought a couple of 6-packs of their beer. And then he's like, you better go say hi to Mike. He's out in the trailer. And those guys were like, can you stick around to eat? And I was like, nope. I got to get on the road and get back to old JC there. But I'm super excited for those guys.
Yeah, next time through. When I was there for lunch, it wasn't ready yet, but he was smoking bologna for like bologna sandwiches later in the day. And I was like, damn it, I missed it. But yes, yeah, good stuff. Anna, you are our third woman head brewer on our podcast. And congratulations to you guys.
Woo, 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 woo. Appreciate that.
But where I'm going with that is, like, what is your opinion of the state of women in craft beer, if you've got one at all? Do you see it? Do you see it growing?
Yeah, I think that, let's see, this was my 4th year, I guess, going to the Craft Brewers Conference, like the national conference with Eric this spring. And every year I feel like there's an increase in like the amount of women there, the amount of diversity just in general. And I do see that increasing. I think that there's a little bit like not a push, it sounds wrong, but like there's an increasing level of like saying that somewhere is female owned or like women operated or women owned and operated. And there's various versions of what that looks like. I think there's probably a higher level of women-owned breweries than like women like operated on the production side. That's at least been my experience with meeting people and the different roles that they hold within the breweries. A lot more like administrative than on the production side. I'd like to see more of that. I do think I have a fairly insular experience with that, only because I think you could have another woman on here who might say that she sort of had to like position herself really strategically to get to where she was, or like had to compete at varying levels to get to the position that she was. And I've been really fortunate, not just in the company that I work for, but in like the regional like Brewers Guild and things like that. That the men who I have interacted with have all been very encouraging and supportive of my space in the brewing world. I know that's definitely not the case for a lot of women who are in the industry, and that's something that I think is important to talk about and highlight. But as far as me acting like that's been my personal experience, that has not been the case for me. I think I've been really fortunate in that. Do you think that there are certain barriers that come with being a woman in the field? I remember specifically when I was first transitioning into production in general, and then specifically when I started training brewing with Eric, I did ask pretty much immediately if he thought that either co-owners or the public or he was going to have any challenges with me being a woman. And he was very quick to, which again, this was fortunate for me, very quick to say, if you're going to do the job properly for me, it doesn't matter too much to me like who you are. And that has always been his motto on that. I think that being a woman in the industry, sometimes it is nice to be recognized for like that is uncommon. I mean, saying that I'm the third woman head brewer on your podcast is something special to hear, and I wish that number was higher. But also, I think that I tend to be someone who likes to be recognized for like the product that I put out rather than being a woman. And I think there is growth specifically in Tennessee that could be had. I was talking to the executive director for the state guild at the Craft Brewers Conference this year, and we were talking about how we don't even really have metrics for like, we don't even have the information cataloged on how many how many people there are, how many like women-owned breweries there are in Tennessee, how many women operated, how many women head brewers there are, how many black owned breweries, black operated, black owned, things like that. And I think it would be important and nice to see some of that data collected. Not so that we can say, look how few women are in the industry, but really I think it might be nice to know how many there are.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I do feel like someone will ask me what it's like, and I'm like, well, I would like to know how many more there are so that we could like collaborate on things. And there's the Pink Boots hop blend that's released every year. We've made beer with that a couple years. We haven't done that in the last couple of years, but it'd be nice to do like a statewide Pink Boots collaboration brew. But it's hard to get in contact with people when we don't even have the information for where they are, or what's going on there. So I think that's something that would be like, in my experience, I wouldn't say it feels isolating at all, but it would be nice to know like who's actually doing what around the state, and just, I mean, nationally as well, but in the state specifically.
Yeah, I did. When Eric told me about you and that you were coming on, I kind of did a chat GPT and was like, hey, are there any other women head brewers in the state of Tennessee and owners? And it brought up a couple, and I knew some of the names, and I go, I don't think they're there anymore. And I won't mention any names, but then I did a deeper dive, and I'm like, yeah, that person's not there anymore, and that person's not there anymore. So I don't know. You might be the only one. I don't know that's true, but from my little quick search, that's what I found.
Yeah, I've wondered that as well. I know there's plenty of women in production. Like you might have plenty of people on the packaging line, or plenty of brewers even, or plenty of people still on the operations side of the brewery. But the head brewer position, I agree with you, might be, and I'm not saying that because I want to claim like I'm the only female head brewer in Tennessee. Like that's actually really not important to me at all. But it would be nice to know. It's
and it might be, but to get that data and to get that information would be nice, right?
I think that'd be nice. Yeah, but like I said, I think it's interesting that you asked me that question just because I'm very quick to kind of like build up the men, at least regionally, who I've interacted with, who have really taken the time to make sure that I'm welcome and supported and respected and kind of brought in just as if that wasn't anything to be thinking about anyway.
Right.
Well, and we were really excited to get you on tonight, and now we're even more excited having you on because of everything you've been able to accomplish with Eric at the brewery.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was. I appreciate you guys having me on. It was cool to be asked. This is the first time I've interviewed on a podcast before, so.
Well, you're welcome back anytime. You could be the second. It'll be Eric's third. It'll be your second time next time.
Here we go.
I thought you guys were going to make me the third host. Come on now. It'd be the Steve and Scott show and the other guy.
Hey, I know we're if he comes back on again, I don't know. He might not want to. You can. You absolutely can.
And who is that guy? Who is he anyway? We'll just call you Peaches.
Look, when you're
Oh, so you know my stage name, eh?
Well, when your term is over from the guild, you're going to need something to do.
That's right. You're not busy enough, Eric. You're not busy enough.
What state can we all walk across? I think you guys should be the guys at the beer tables along the way, and by beer tables I mean all the tap rooms along the way. You got to have one beer at each of the tap rooms.
That's right. Steve and I will be at the finish point already. When you get there, like, hey.
We'll love it. We can set that up for you.
We could totally do that. I do want to ask you this. You mentioned this is your last term as the president of the Brewers Guild. You had mentioned when you were on here last time that some things take a lot of years and multiple terms to kind of come to fruition. Have you got some things that you're currently working on that either you took over and are still working on, or that will kind of continue on into the next term?
Yeah, so we just had a board meeting in Chattanooga, and we've been doing a really cool thing this year where we to increase our outreach to breweries all over the state is that we've been holding our board meetings regionally every quarter. And then hosting socials after. And so we just had one in Chattanooga. It was a lot of fun, but I was telling our board that we should be proud of what we've accomplished over the past year and a half. But it could be summarized as transition because last year our executive director that we'd had since like 2015 or so, she came to me and said, I'm planning on resigning or wrapping up my time here as executive director towards the end of last year. And so, we began the process of starting to interview for new executive directors, and it took a long time, and we went through a number of folks, interviewing folks, and finally found Matt Altabell. And I don't know if you guys have met Matt yet or not, but he kind of jumped from the frying pan into the fire kind of thing in January, because that's the time of year when we go lobby and work with our elected officials to talk about beer laws. And so he just got like thrown into the fire there, but he did a really great job. And then over the past, after February or March, so done a really good job and kind of figuring out a game plan for, what's our short-term and long-term plans for the guild, where do we go from here? And I think we've got some really good ideas both on, increasing membership, not just for breweries, but for, kind of affiliate members, different companies that supply breweries, getting home brewers across the state involved and become members of the state guild. Also opening up guild positions and types of memberships to, to cideries and meaderies and even distilleries. as we try to work with the executive directors and the associations and guilds related to the wine, wine folks, and also the distilling folks, and try to work together, beer, wine, and distilling, and of course cideries and meaderies, together, as we try to shape both favorable laws when it comes to making and selling alcohol, but also building relationships with the various departments at the state level, Office, Department of Agriculture, Department of Tourism, Department of Finance and things like that, to be able to, to figure out what the next round of manufacturing and alcohol in Tennessee looks like. And, quite honestly, it hasn't always been favorable, especially for smaller businesses and people trying to start something brand new who don't have the resources or the means to do that. And, my personal view, and maybe this is getting political, but I'm a big supporter of small businesses. I think small businesses are the backbone of not only Tennessee, but America. And we have to make an environment for not just small businesses to be able to build something up and rise up, but to encourage and support people, from all walks of life, to be able to think that starting an alcohol manufacturing business is something that they can do and that they'd like to do, and that we as a state support them in doing that kind of thing. Because as we know, the craft brewing world and craft distilling and craft cideries, it's way bigger than beer. We support it's a multi-billion-dollar economy just for craft beverages in Tennessee. On the tourism side, on the agriculture side, supporting farmers, supporting culture and community, music and food and community, all these terms. And so I think we're on a good path. And I'm both excited for where we're going, and just because I won't be I think that the outgoing president has kind of serves on the board for a year or so, kind of as an ex officioso kind of role. But I think that there's some exciting things coming down the pipe for craft beverages in Tennessee.
That's exciting. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been in good hands. It will continue to be in good hands.
One of the joys of doing this podcast, he says, sense of humor there, love it. One of the joys of doing this podcast is getting to know folks like you guys, because you're hardworking individuals and you're out there like everybody else. You're grinding, you're trying to make a living, and that's what it's all about.
And we need you to keep doing it, because we need beer to keep drinking. So
That's right.
We need more peaches.
It's cyclical. I mean, we'll help you. You help us. It's a win-win.
We need more of that.
Don't stop making beer. We need it. I tell you, if you ever need to, as you're coming to Nashville and you're like, damn, I can't get all the way, I'll meet you halfway and I'll distribute the beer into Nashville for you halfway. A good percentage might actually make it to the liquor store.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys. I mean, you guys service a great role as a guy. I mean, before I was a brewer, I worked in news, and big believer in communication on things. And so you guys serve a super important role on, something like this where you have Ann and I on, and you've got breweries on, taking interest in not only what we do and our company, but what the industry does, spreading the word, and then, showing people that once again, it's about people. We make and sell beer for a living, but real people here in Tennessee are working these jobs and helping build up the economy. And I really appreciate what you guys do.
Well, good, Steve. If you got anything else, if not, we can just wrap it up.
Just want to thank him. Thank him for being there after a long day of brewing and a long day of grinding it out. But thanks for joining us, guys.
Yes, they brewed a double batch.
It's really good to meet you guys.
Really great to meet you. We'll get out there and see you. I can't wait for the beer to improve as you brew more. It's going to keep getting better. Looking forward to that.
That's right. It's only up from here. So there you go. Eric Latham and Anna McKay from Johnson City Brewing in Johnson City, Tennessee. Thanks for joining us on the Brewery Underground podcast.
Thanks for being on. We really appreciate you guys. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
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 Cheers.